Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Bonus Point podcast. Once again, I'm your host, TJ Olson, and today's episode is all about the Major League Rugby competition. Since their first ever collegiate draft, we haven't really had too much news to cover other than the new Hawaiian team hoping to join the MLR. But we're hoping our next guest can help fill in some of those gaps to provide you with some breaking news about new signings, current rosters, player evaluations, and other awesome news. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank our amazing sponsors. First off, Whalebird Kombucha. If you're looking for a great tasting beverage that is actually good for you, go try them out at your local Whole Foods, Air One, and other health food stores. Secondly, F45 Culver City. So F45 isn't just a gym, it's a real community, and their team are all there to help you achieve your fitness goals with sessions in just 45 minutes. Although there are new regulations due to the spike in COVID-19 cases, gyms have been having a bit of a hard time trying to stay open, but their owner, Charlie, and the team are now doing outdoor workouts that are still safe for you to get some training in. So reach out to them online to get some quarantine training, life-changing results. With rugby becoming the fastest growing team sport in the United States, it was inevitable that a viable professional league would eventually start to gain some traction. After its third season, the Major League Rugby competition still continues to grow here in the US and has started to gain a lot of global interest from players, coaches, investors, and viewers. Even though the competition had to suspend the season early due to COVID-19, there is still a lot of news and movement happening behind the scenes from the front offices as they prepare for the 2021 season. With that in mind, we thought it was about time the Bonus Point got involved to share some of that breaking news, and we asked our new partners at the Rugby Index to help us kind of fill in those gaps. Please welcome our friends from the Rugby Index, Cam and Walker Tice. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Doing well.
So Cam and Walker, we here at the Bonus Point, we're super excited to partner with you guys at the Rugby Index. And would you be able to tell our listeners kind of more about what the Rugby Index is?
Yeah, it was kind of founded and throughout this whole COVID pandemic situation, a little extra time on our hands. Really, we wanted to mimic what they do quite frequently in soccer. And one of the most predominant ones is Transfermark, where they regularly track and accurately track player transactions. Obviously, player fees are a lot more relevant and prevalent in soccer. Rugby, not as much, but wanted to start to put a evaluation to players. If you're signing a young domestic player, especially as MLR has a limitation of 10 international spots, what does that market value bring? What is their value to not just the team, but maybe the league? And in addition to that, just wanted to start tracking player movement from within MLR, out of MLR in, and then vice versa, just international players from the Canadian and American sides.
And that's definitely something that a lot of people are kind of really wanting to know. A lot of that information is very scarce to find out. You're very rare to find that information because MLR, they do kind of show news here and there through Google, but it's very rare that you go and hear player evaluations, kind of that the value to the market, those kinds of things. So I think that's really good, and I'm glad we are able to partner with you guys. But without further ado, let's get stuck into the show and let's talk about everything happening in the MLR front offices. So as you guys know, July 13th was supposed to be the deadline to re-sign players on an MLR roster. So Cam, would you be able to tell me, is that still the case, or are there still re-signings happening?
From the consensus understanding, it is. July 13th was a unannounced deadline. There was no formal announcement by the league, but words basically got out that was the deadline to re-sign players. That doesn't necessarily mean that players that haven't been announced aren't re-signed. Probably what you're going to see is there's going to be, just to create content and periodic interest from the clubs from a social media standpoint, you're going to see them probably just sporadically and incrementally announce players they already re-signed just to try and that tap on the shoulder. Hey, we're still here, even though the 2020 season was cut. I'm pretty sure.
So it's not necessarily like the NBA, how they come and they go, this is the trade deadline, or this is the re-signing deadline. Like this, it's basically kind of a date that's been kind of thrown out there, but not necessarily set in stone.
It seems to be pretty loose. What I think you'll end up seeing is the especially players that have already been signed, especially foreign players that have visas.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be a level of a grace period to try. You want to bring the top level talent in. So I think the league will allow a sort of grace period to, just try and keep that given current circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially with the pandemic in kind of effect, it's something where I think a lot of the owners will turn around and go, we have to work with each other, rather than go, you passed the deadline and you shouldn't be able to sign that player, because then it just kind of goes away from what the league's trying to achieve, is to become the biggest rugby league in the US and in the world. So I think that would be something that I'm hoping most of the owners would be able to do, and they would be able to be civil about it. But is there any kind of big re-signings at kind of right at the deadline, or that was supposed to be at the deadline, aside from the few others that we're going to talk about today?
It's so hard to tell, simply because the MLR and all the franchises hold information like that so close to their chest.
Yeah.
And I think it's mostly centered around that there isn't a players association. There's a movement for one, but there isn't a players association. And the reason why we see that transparency in other leagues, just regardless if it's rugby or some other sport, is because there are player associations.
Yeah.
And without the MLR having one, there's not much demand or legality to have that transparency.
Okay, well, I think that's where you guys are going to come in handy, is if you guys can kind of get your foot in the door and able to get them to kind of feed you information, you guys are able to send it out to the public. I think it'll be kind of a good partnership to have, because like I said, not only me and you guys are the ones that are wanting this information. A lot of people are wanting to know who's getting signed, who are these people that are a part of the organization, not just random information that we're finding here and there. So let's kind of jump in, and we'll move to talking about people that are expected to join in the near future, and that's one Bryce Campbell. So another player that could be making a big impact in the MLR, centre that's played for the US in the World Cup. He's had 32 caps in the US national side before the pandemic. He was signed with the London Irish. But according to your information, he's set to sign for an MLR team in the near future. And Cam, are you be able to tell me the front runners to maybe who could potentially sign Campbell?
We initially thought it'd be, at least this is how it's kind of been across the board for the first 3 seasons, is players have stayed at least regional. So Bryce Campbell's Indiana guy, went to IU. We figured he'd probably stay pretty local, relatively speaking, to either Atlanta or DC. This is completely rumor gossip, but it sounds like he's going to Austin, which, given the track record for the Gilgronis, they do try to like make a big splash with their signings. I think it's kind of par for the course for them, so I wouldn't be surprised if that does hold quite a bit of truth to it.
Okay, well, is there anywhere that you Walker, you would like to see him play?
I mean, being here in Cincinnati and he in Indiana, I would like to see him close to home here. I personally think he would fit well into the Atlanta system. Quick ball and very fast through the back line. He can play inside, outside, and has a little bit of versatility there. So with their quick ball constantly getting into the flow and inserting both forwards and backs into their line movements, I really think he fits in there stylistically. But honestly, truth be told, I'm excited to see him back here, back in the States, and
just anywhere.
Yeah, I think if you want to continue to have American rugby grow, you have to have top American talent, and that's easier said than done when a lot of other leagues can offer more money and better competition. But given the circumstances, and he seems to be coming back, and it's good to have him around.
I think it's definitely good to see a lot of Americans there either coming back from contracts, or they're looking to grow the MLR, and they're kind of going away from the potential of those UK contracts or those Japanese contracts, where they can go and they can come here, help grow the competition and develop the next generation. Me personally, I'd like to see him in the LA franchise, and I know that that's obviously pretty far away from him, and it's owned by a pretty controversial owner, but although we don't know who could be the potential pieces around him, I would love him to see him around head coach Darren Coleman and assistant coach Stephen Hoyles, because if they can get their hands on him to develop his game, I think he'd be able to develop himself into a really good piece for that organization, maybe be their star. So Coleman was a former attack coach for the Brumbies. He won a shoot shield in Sydney, Australia. Hoyles was a former Wallabies player, good assistant coach for the Aussie Sevens program. So I think combine that with what he's learned at the London Irish, I think he can be a big threat. But like we said, a lot of this is hypothetical. We'll kind of see down the road, and we'll be able to kind of get information from you guys where he could potentially be signing. But another controversial, I think, kind of announcement that was made a little while ago was the Hawaii franchise, or the possibility of it. And like we've all seen, their exclusive negotiation period with the MLR, and they have 90 days to be approved as the 14th club. So when officially did they announce? Do you know, Walker?
Just this past week was the most official announcement, and really was confirmed this past week by MLR, which I think Kanaloa had been putting some teasers out periodically the last month or so, and really starting to ramp up just their operations. Cam Kilgore and Tracy Atiga out there, and I believe they're currently based in New Zealand, and going to eventually transition to Oahu in Honolulu specifically. But no official word yet. To your point, they're in that trial period, or they've got 90 days to kind of submit a final proposal to the league to either be accepted or declined as the 14th team.
So I've been in chats with Cam. I know that he's been very busy trying to get him to sit down for a phone call. I think is a bit difficult for me right now, because obviously he's got a lot of people coming at him. He's got a lot to organize. But I think the big thing for me that was really interesting to see was guys like Joe Rokithoko, John Afua, Ben Atiga, Jerome Kano, Anthony Tuatavaki, who have all represented the Blues and the All Blacks at times during their professional careers, have jointly invested in this Hawaiian team. So that's something I think where a lot of Pacific Islanders and potentially Māori players from New Zealand as well, I think they could help kind of grow this and push this forward. And I think if they get enough backing behind them, plus from the local community, I think it'll be a good plus for the MLR. Do you agree, or do you guys have some worries about this?
No, not in the least bit. To be honest, I think having those guys involved brings immediate validity to what they're doing. It brings a level of professionalism and expectation for the team. I think it sets a precedence that there is reinvestment into their communities, and that's how you inspire somebody. And that might sound a little corny, but to have those guys do the grassroots efforts that they're doing, and really trying to continue to push not just New Zealanders or Samoans, but really all Pacific Islanders forward, and just allow them an avenue to go through high performance training and have the resources necessary to take their game to the next level. You see a lot of players right now out of Hawaii going overseas. I'm remiss of his name, but from Kahuku, he just signed to go play for Life University, the big loose forward. And so you see top tier talent coming out of Hawaii, and for that matter, the Fijian nation, Samoa, Tonga, for the resources that they have available are really competitive. And if you have a high performance avenue like this to not only promote American players, but all Pacific Islanders and players that now have a resource and an avenue to take their game to the next level. MLR isn't the best competition in the world, but any type of professionalism and a structure will enable them to grow and take another step.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think it's something where it's definitely promoting the best for Pacific rugby or Polynesian rugby especially. And I think anything we can do, whether it's the best opportunity or whether it's just an opportunity, anything is good, as long as the people are in a position to put them in a place where they can play good rugby and they can help develop them, and at least get them some sort of funds or some way to kind of help and support their family back home. So that's something really good. Also, something that was happening was that Tracy Atiga, the CEO, they suggested that they were talking to New Zealand as well about potentially becoming a team for the Super Rugby competition as well. And after speaking with Cam, he thinks that they'll be able to kind of do both. They'll be able to have the Hawaiian MLR team. They'll be able to have a Super Rugby team as well. Do you see that as kind of like having the Hawaiian team as a building block for the Super Rugby side, or do you think they will work in tandem? Which one do you think?
I think they are so different in skill level, and that's not to undermine the MLR, but it's where they are in their time of existence. I think Hawaii can be a feeder to the New Zealand-based team, but I don't think it's a definitive line that you get promoted to the New Zealand team or that you graduate to that team. It would make some sense, and you look at again, you look at some of these football clubs in Manchester City or Red Bulls, and they've got teams around the world that, yeah, there might be a player or two that gets pushed to the next level, gets pushed to a better league, especially at a young age. But for the most part, there isn't an interchangeability season to season of players. So I think they might, I really believe they're going to be able to find a core value of players for each team, maybe a change of player here and there, but for the most part, I think it's going to be separate entities. And that has to do a lot with skill level. I think the MLR is getting better every year.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
and that's just how it is. That's where it's going to be for now. I hope that players that can graduate to Super Rugby, or maybe a player towards the tail end of their career, can come over and be a leader for Kanaloa in Hawaii. But I don't see it as a conflict of interest, but more as a supporting role.
Just an opportunity to grow rugby as a whole. Yeah, I think you're definitely right. It's the skill level isn't kind of comparable to Super Rugby. I think that's never going to be debatable. But if the MLR does what they're trying to do, and they're trying to make rugby a massive sport in the US, which you've seen done with a lot of other sports or individual aspects or individual kind of things that they do, they're able to kind of get the best out of the sport or the activity, and they're able to promote it to a higher level. I think that's because there's no grassroots level really that's a really massive here in the US, which is something that is obviously still growing as well. So I think if they're able to continue on the same track that they are now, it could be something that happens down the future, down the road, but we'll see. Well, it's definitely a potential. Americans are known for their ingenuity and their hard-working attitude to get stuff done. So that's what I love about it. And the good thing is, yeah, and the good thing is I found out you guys are part Hawaiian as well, which I had no idea. Yeah. So this is obviously close to your home as well. So this is close to your hearts. So this will be something that you guys are obviously pushing for as well.
Yeah, I think I have a team now. I was a little bit in ambiguity here in Cincinnati, but I have a team. I'm a diehard from day one.
Yeah, I was
March release.
I was definitely when MLR, because I was born in New York, and I was sitting there going, oh, maybe I should support New York. And then I had a kid I coached go play for San Diego, and that became my team. And then the LA team got announced, and I'm like, man, I'm just bouncing back and forth. But I think I'm definitely going to go Hawaii too. So I have to. It's like you got to promote Pacific Island rugby. It's something that's really, really dear and near to my heart. So I think that's going to be definitely my team too. But we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about Austin, RNUY, and NOLA as well. And obviously talking about where other potential teams could possibly be in our bonus point segment as we return. All right, welcome back. So our next topic is going to be about the Austin Gilgronis. Even though they have a pretty questionable name, they still have a interesting kind of track record of their player reports and kind of who they have in their roster. So according to another report from you guys, is the Gilgronis continue to clean house after having one of the youngest squads last year. So Cam, what key players have they let go?
I don't know so much some of the key players. It's more so about what the big names they've kept back or they kept. They've really focused on bringing back some of the fan favorites. Mason Peterson. A lot of the fans know him as the Hitman. He's what Americans love to see: big hits and dynamic runs where he trucks two people and then scores.
I think everybody across the world loves to see that, but especially Americans.
Well, okay, that's probably true. But everybody likes to give us a hard time about our American football. So
yeah, that's true. That is definitely true.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but Zinzan Ilan Putic, their captain, I believe he's been with the franchise since their inception through the herd, the elite. He's kind of been the one consistent figure there, and I don't know how long he's been in the captain role, but he's certainly been a focal point of the team. Other than that, there really aren't too many notable
players that they've kept around.
Brought back. You saw Todd Clever, who was a player coach, manager, water boy. He pretty much had every title in the club at one point. Moved from player to ownership for all of maybe 5 minutes, and then became the Go Gronies. He's no longer affiliated with the organization as far as the public's aware. And then other than that, the few notable names I think you could probably say are Lerone White and Dom Aquina. Lerone White's a young prop, played at Louisville, pretty dynamic player. He actually played 8-man in college. I think it just had a sheer athleticism. Fits more of as a prop and the professional level. But other than that, you probably won't see too many. I think Will Maggie is not going to be back with the club. And I'm the young Fijian, the older Fijian that they signed with him.
Kurt Moran.
Yeah, thank you, Walker. He will not be back with the club. Those are 1-year contracts, unless they end up bringing back on another contract. I don't think you'll see a big name that isn't already announced back with the club. They are really going with the youth movement through the draft, and also with undrafted free agency. Big name to keep an eye on, a guy who actually wasn't even drafted, but I think could crack the 23 pretty early for Austin, is Cam Dodson.
Okay, yep.
Big lock. Honestly, he's massive. He out of I believe he was out in the West.
Grand Canyon.
School. Was it Canyon?
Grand Canyon, yeah.
Grand Canyon. Okay, so it's Grand Canyon. A lot of people thought he'd be a consensus like top 3 pick, but I think there were some visa issues that scared pretty much the entire draft away, and then he got that cleared up, and then ended up signing with Austin. So I think that's a big name to look out for as a sort of breakout player on the rise. But
Grand Canyon have been very big staples about producing a lot of good collegiate players in the last 3 or so years. But because I coached against them, I think 5 years ago with Cal Poly, and they were basically unheard of. Like no one had ever heard of Grand Canyon as like a good rugby college, and they've pumped a lot of money into their program. They've got some pretty good coaching there, so it's good to see that they're producing a lot of good players out of that college, and it's becoming known as a rugby college. So that's it's very interesting for that to happen. But is there anywhere else? Obviously, they've gotten rid of a lot of players. Is there anyone else that's kind of been a staple signing for Austin, or is that basically it?
You see a lot of young sort of football converts being signed. Most notably Rod Waters, a very dynamic wing that they had. Honestly, he's got the size and the athletic ability to play pretty much anywhere in the back line, but just, it's kind of the American way to take your super athlete who doesn't quite really know the game yet to just stick him on wing and say, catch the ball and make a lot of people miss and then go score.
Well, that's basically what they did for Carlin Isles in the sevens. They said, hey, you're a fast runner. Let's put you on the wing. And his first couple of years, terrible. Couldn't catch a pass to save his life. But now he's actually cleaning out rucks and he's making tackles and he's doing stuff that a real rugby player does. So it's definitely, it may be the American way, but it works. Like everybody who plays against Carlin Isles, they don't want to play against him because you give him this much space, he's away. So it's something where you're converting a lot of, as you said, football players or other athletes. I don't know if Naya Tapper is a convert, but she's definitely someone you put on the wing. She doesn't really have the best rugby skills, but she's a great athlete. So yeah, it's definitely something where you can kind of utilize that to your advantage. But do you think that with Sam Harris as the new coach, who was a former Super Rugby player for the Waratahs, he's stepping into a new team, trying to cement himself as that coach, and the Austin team haven't really had a good start. They've had a pretty rocky start in this competition. Do you think this is a potential way for Harris to start with kind of just a clean slate, keep the kind of figureheads, get some new guys in, and develop them through?
I truthfully do. I think any rugby fan should do the Gilgronis their fair shot. I think if you're a true rugby fan in America, I think you should separate their questionable marketing plan from the product they're putting on a pitch.
Yeah.
Starting with, as soon as the new group took over last year, you saw some pretty strong signings. And they pretty much went from one of the most financially unstable clubs, I don't think there's any arguing that, to one of, if not the most financially stable club in the league. With Gilchrist, being the focal point of that. But I really think a lot of people are misunderstanding, misconstruing this turnover once again as they don't know what they're doing. I don't think that's going to end up being the case. I think it's, for a long time, there wasn't the backbone and the support that was needed. And I think probably the league just propped it up, because the last thing you want as a new league is a team to fold. So they were doing everything they can to prop it up and keep it, at least aesthetically looking like they were doing well. But I really would give the Gilgronis a fair shot with what they're going to do, at least from a front office perspective. I would expect them to bring in some top tier talent. And I think their front office is going to be a 180 from what you've seen in the past.
I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of people are giving Gilchrist a bad rap. Obviously, he's coming into a position where he's trying to be unique and kind of different and trying to do something. I think a lot of people are getting caught up in that. And although I may not be the biggest fan of his marketing campaigns and things like that, he's trying to promote rugby and he's trying to put a lot of money into it and he's trying to help the community. So I think more people need to kind of understand that. Like you said, give them a fair shot, them and the LA side, because they're both backed by Gilchrist, and not focus on just the logos and what they're trying to do. And I think he's going to put on a great kind of atmosphere as well in Austin and LA. They've got two very young, very vibrant markets that he can kind of take advantage of. And let's hope these cocktails actually taste really good. So the Giltinis and the Gilgronis, let's hope they actually taste good and they're fun. So this will be good.
I'm a craft beer snob, so I'm ready for it.
Oh yeah, there you go. I am too. I was talking to one of our guest analysts, Hulla. Me and him, we love our beer, and we're on carnivore at the moment, so we can't drink our beer. So that's why we're hoping these cocktails will be tasting pretty good, and they're nice and fun. So we'll see. It's all a bit hypothetical at the moment, but we'll find out. I think it's going to be good, especially with the coaches they've put in those figurehead positions. I think we're in for a good run, at least for some good rugby. But we'll move on to sorry, go ahead, Kim.
Well, I was going to say, I just the last two notes. One, I was actually following some of these other South African clubs. Maybe not your Super Rugby or your top 14 teams that are in the forefront of the world rugby, but there's actually a ton of clubs that are, in their title, their name is a beer. It's just a beer.
It definitely is.
I can't remember. It's the name of the brewery that brews it, something lager, and I forget their mascot, but it's in their name, and I started kind of playing around with it. It's actually more prominent than I think the American fan base realizes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's you've got the Japanese team Suntory, like one of the most popular beers in Japan. They're named after a beer. So I think when it comes with social media, everyone's going to just jump on the bandwagon and go, this is stupid. And then this fire is just going to kind of just keep flaming just everywhere. And then people are just going to keep jumping on. But like you said, we just have to give them a shot and see what happens. At the end of the day, that's it. You just got to see what the rugby produces, and then everything else is kind of material. It's nothing really that goes with the rugby. It's just marketing. So, but I think at the end of the day, he's gotten them talking about the team. Everyone's sharing these pages. Everyone's sharing information about the team. At the end of the day, he's getting coverage where it's not necessarily good coverage, but coverage is coverage. So there you go.
Right. Exactly. Growing it.
And you say you have one more point?
I've lost it. I think
you're all good. All right. Well,
I'm at the end of the show, and I'll make a point of it. But
we'll move on to the Rugby United New York team. So we've got two boys that are returning to that side. So we've got Dylan Fawcett and Nate Brakely. So Dylan, he's got 15 US caps for the national side, and Nate, he's got 23. Two intricate players to that New York side, and New York have shown that they have the potential to become a top 4 team in this competition. So does this signing help develop some of the younger stars and give them a good foundation to start with, Walker?
Yeah, I think anytime you have consistency, especially in your pack, it's going to create a good culture. It's going to create a level of consistency for the younger players, which that's one of the biggest ways you can get tripped up as a younger player. You just get into a bad culture or an uncomfortable environment. So having a couple of guys that have been there from the start, have been through the national team system and know the ropes, it brings some stability there. And of course, Fawcett, their captain, my opinion, probably the most dynamic forward in the league, and a ball in hand, and then Brakely, one of the better line out men. So, collectively, it brings some stability to the set pieces. It brings some stability to the culture of the team. And anytime you can bring back 2 national team players, it's a good day. And so I think both of them will continue to be that rock for New York.
Yeah, I think it's definitely true. It's ball in hand and lineouts. Those are 2 things that need to be improved in this competition, especially with players. They need to kind of just learn how to use ball in hand, not necessarily just tuck it and run. They need to learn how to attack the line, look at the advantages. So I think having someone, like you said, who's gone through the national kind of chain of command and gone through and experienced all of that, it will be definitely something that they can kind of be figureheads or leaders for these younger players coming through this kind of generation. It's something that we can kind of help develop in the US. But also, the NOLA team continues to be a trendsetter of sorts, signing multitude of players to 2 to 3 year plus contracts. So you obviously see everywhere around in as much information as you can get. You see players signing for a year, maybe 2, but 2 to 3 years, that's a lot of commitment to put into a player. So how many other clubs do you think are making long-term commitments like this?
Right now, we see Atlanta announcing a few. I think it's going to start to be the trend, especially with younger American and Canadian talent. Obviously, for Toronto, they're going to invest a lot in their youth, and you start to see that with some of their signings that they're bringing in. But not a lot. Again, and Cam kind of touched on it previously. There's not a ton of transparency that's either forced or let out by the clubs up until late about duration of contracts and especially, and I think it'll be some time before we have a better understanding about salary caps and roster structures. Obviously, we do know that each team gets 10 international spots, and we're starting to see more transparency about the transfer of international spots to different teams and trades of cap space. Which is something that's new for the league, and really I think it brings it elevates the league to a different dynamic, and it becomes a far bigger business, and now just different pieces have a different value to it, and I think you see New Orleans, who's doing a great job of solidifying young American talent. And they're okay parting ways with some of these international spots and signing guys for multi-year deals. So I think it'll continue to be the trend. They started it last year, and unfortunately, one of their biggest investments, Tristan Blewett, decided that he's going to go pursue his academic career. And turns out he made a great decision in heading into 2020 with the whole pandemic. But that was a bit surprising, but maybe an anomaly. But they've really started to set the precedence as far as not just transparency, but investing in their team and having a level of consistency. And I think that's what ultimately is going to create better franchises, longer term deals, more consistency, and having 20 to 25 guys that are consistent throughout your roster. And you're always going to have players that are a bit transient, some older guys that are going to fill roles. But if you can have a solid foundation of players that's locked up for a number of years, it brings a level of comfort to the players and then ultimately to the culture of the team.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. It's something where I had no idea that New Orleans had their own rugby field. Like that's a pretty rare thing to see in the US. But I went to New Orleans for the first time last year, and I was riding my bike through where their rugby field was, and it said Rugby Park. And I was like, if we get more of that, and then signing more multitude of players to long-term deals and kind of just creating that culture, I think it's definitely something that will be needed for this competition. But I'm still so surprised that with kind of the culture, ESPN, all these social media channels, and you've got the NFL, NBA, the MLB, always talking about trades, contracts, everything like that, coverage about all this stuff, why the MLR hasn't pounced on this yet and why they haven't made a big deal out of it. Because I think if they start spreading the information around, it'll create more hype. It'll be get more people talking about it, and you'll be able to get more information, which will put you more invested in the team. So I'm hoping that will be a change. And like I've said earlier in this episode, I'm hoping you guys can get that information. You can be the
I was going to
spread
say,
the word out with the Rugby Index.
I think that's what we're geared to do. And I think in MLR's defense, I think there is a level of protectiveness that you have to have as launching a league. There are, guys that are associate players and don't make much of anything being associated around the team, and optically that can be very undermining to the league. You can have a negative impression seeing a guy makes 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, whatever the number might be, for a season, and you think, gosh, a guy's putting in the time and being a professional by all intents and purposes is their profession now, and you think, well, gosh, they're working a side job or but that's just the state of what we're in. But that can also be a negative to a new follower. And so it's a little bit of protecting the organization, but there needs to be better transparency, especially, I think, in the duration of contracts. And I think that's the first step that the league could take.
Well, if anybody from the MLR is listening to this, these guys just backed you up and they don't even have a contract. So definitely give them something. They're here to help you guys out, not hurt you. So
I'm a man of the people.
There we go. So it's called the bonus point for a reason. And today's bonus point segment is coming from some information you guys gave me. Is Eric Anderson, the chairman of the board for the MLR, has gone on record on an interview with Rugby Wrap Up saying the board see approximately 40 cities that have marketability for a franchise. So I think what I'm going to do with this bonus segment is I'll go first. And what I want to do is see what you guys think, what city you think should be a next MLR team. So me personally, I think I'd like to see a team in Ohio. We've seen a pro rugby team there before with the former pro rugby competition. And many people I know from Ohio, especially in Columbus, say there is a strong rugby community there. I coached a kid 2 years ago who came over from Ohio to New Zealand, and I had no idea there was a massive rugby community in Ohio. So I think that this would help with the playing potential, the coach development resources to be put into the city of Columbus. I think the city would get behind it as it would provide more jobs. So I think that Ohio is definitely on that list. But we'll start with you, Cam. Which city do you think should be the next MLR team?
I'm actually going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go with a bit of a region. I think the Bay Area would be it almost confuses me that there hasn't been a group or a push for there to be a franchise there.
I was with you too. I was very confused. I got a lot of friends that play up there, and I know there's a massive rugby community up there, ex-professional team there. So I was confused too.
Exactly. There for what pro rugby was, for its 1 year, there were two franchises there, and I think you saw some, in terms of fan and culture, that was obviously not the problem. I think, if it has the ability to support two clubs like that, why are we not supporting at least one in that area where it's the rugby is so rich with Golden Gate and some of these other more prominent men's and women's clubs up there that have been in the forefront of, American rugby for decades. If everybody's listening, let's put together an ownership group and get that going.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah, you think someone in the tech startup business would be able to front that, or at least get a kind of an ownership group going. I don't think they're short on funds up there in some places. So
right,
I think
the Silicon Valley of the world needs to get behind rugby. The funding should be there.
All right, Walker, you're up. Who do you think should be the next MLR city?
I really like Charlotte, North Carolina, and I think it's a good connector for some of those East Coast teams, DC, Atlanta, and it's got good proximity to them. It's not terribly far from New York or Toronto, but it's a decent connector. They've got a pretty rich rugby community there. They've been actually producing a decent amount of talent down to Life University and then into the Atlanta system. So I think they could support it. They just announced an MLS club not too long ago, so they're certainly eager for the professional sports development. Obviously, they've got NFL and NHL, and so they're a sports market. And who doesn't like rugby on the beach and in warm weather? So I'm optimistically hoping for an Ohio team here in Cincinnati, or Columbus. We're originally from Columbus, so I'm open to either. But I think Charlotte in the short term would be a really nice city, good rugby community, and a good destination. I think you're starting to see a trend with some of these challenger sports where they become destination locations. MLS, you've got Nashville, and some of these other cities that are young, but they're destination cities, and it becomes kind of an event and a different culture around the sport. So Charlotte being a warm weather city, I'm all for it.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's something where I think a lot of the collegiate programs will benefit from it as well, because me coaching in Cal Poly, you saw a lot of people that didn't make the football team. They would just want to come and find a sport where they could hit people, or they could just run around and they could play with the ball. So it's something where I think if you can show that there's a pathway for some form of professional team to be put in that area, whether it is Carolina or the Bay Area, something like that, they will maybe go to rugby in the collegiate, try and build up, and then try and push for a professional career. So I think it's something where 40 cities definitely possible. Someone's just got to put their hand up and they've got to back it. So we'll eventually see. But we've got 15 teams right now. Is that the number?
Yeah, well, Glendale kind of stepped aside. Kanaloa and Hawaii would be the 14th.
14th, yeah.
Yeah, so we're at 14. I still think the Denver market has to be revitalized. I don't think it was for a lack of support that
definitely
they
not.
kind of disbanded. Obviously there's a lot of ambiguity and questions about what exactly happened there. Obviously, they seem to be running well enough that the USA Rugby and their transition phase right now is eager enough to partner with them. So there has to be some sense of stability there. Yet they're departing MLR and shutting down their women's program. So I think while that is confusing, I think the city of Denver can still very much so support a professional team. But of course, Kanaloa coming in, knock on wood, we're able to see them fruition. That would be number 14. I think the league would be smart to put a pause on expansion, but if they do expand, let's make it some warm weather destinations.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's been the consensus a lot of people are saying we're expanding too fast. So I think if we get this Hawaiian team set in place, and I think possibly if they want to expand, maybe just one more team, but let's just stick with that core group. Let the game kind of evolve and then just go from there. But I'm saying that too. I think with the evolution of this competition, I think we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch. We definitely want to just sit there, grow the competition, get more input into the game, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, no, that's awesome. So thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate this first episode. I look forward to joining with you guys and sharing some more MLR updates. Is there any other information about the Rugby Index before I let you guys go that you guys want to share?
No, just give us a follow. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Rugby Index. Pretty straightforward.
Okay. Cam, any last words from you, buddy?
Slight teaser. We do have the ambition to launch a website this summer, this fall. We are very much in the data collection phase. And so, but there will be a website launch in the near future. So just be on the lookout for that.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Walker and Cam, for joining us. I will share all the information on our Facebook page and in the link so you guys can get involved and familiar with the Rugby Index. But look out for more episodes involving MLR updates and everything else with the Rugby Index. But thank you very much for joining us with the Bonus Point Podcast.